All right, so I am placing my smart vector onto my full resolution image in Photoshop, which means slightly nudging and growing. There we go, it's getting there. And because it's a vector layer, it can always be messed with. I could even skew it slightly. So you're refining it just all the time as you go. I feel like I haven't given myself much wiggle room with my design here. So let me look at it quick. I've modified this sketch a lot. I've cleaned it up, but what was intended originally is just a little bit higher. That goes in between right there. I see. And you can do all these alterations while it's still a vector, a smart object, so that it won't lose resolution. Okay, that looks pretty good. Yeah, okay. So I finally got it placed. Now I kind of know what my text is doing, where my image is, and I decide what are the edges of my poster now. I can use my guides for that. And then we're going to crop the outside. We know that just my spot illustration is already 11 by 14 inches at 350 pixels per inch. So a poster is going to be bigger than that and will work. And you can use the crop tool to grow space as well as to shrink it. So if I wanted to add a little bit more onto this side, I can do that with the crop tool. So it's like a visual canvas size tool. Okay, so let's say that's my poster. Now, what's left? Well, coloring behind the text is a good first step. So just like the way we digitally color, I'm going to quickly resave this. So save as not a spot illustration anymore, but as my poster. Assignment 8 to the desktop as a PSD. The way I color text, make a blank layer underneath. This is my color layer. I lock the text vector. And I can steal colors from myself if I want to. So if I like this magenta, I can paint with that. I'm not even going to bother with doing the selections. I'm just going to do it by hand. I can zoom in, and I know I'm not going to interfere with my vectors. Because I'm coloring behind them. The only problem is every once in a while I'll get, oops, outside of the lines. So I'll just toggle behind the paint, between the paintbrush and the eraser. Of course, I can make my brush a little bit smaller. Another technique is to simply trace around the edges of the things you want to paint and then use the paint bucket to fill it in. Okay, now let's steal another color. Paint with that. Keeping it loose. Now, coloring on a different layer than your vector has other advantages as well. So I'm just doing flat color. But I can also add layer styles to that flat color. So if I want to give it a gradient, if I want to give it an inner glow, I can do all of that very easily. So both of these are on this layer. This is my text color. I can label that if I want. And now if I just double click on that, I can give it, let's say, a gradient overlay, and then play with the opacity of it. I can even choose different colors to overlay it with, right? Make it brighter. Lots of different options. And I can even change the angle of that gradation. See, so there's just lots of little subtlety in there. Gives a little bit of life. I can also do things like an inner glow. And that's going to look nice on that tattoo lettering. A drop shadow if I want to, make it look a little smudgy. And of course I can affect all of these. Just a slight shadow, slight smudge. Okay. And now anything I put in that layer, as I color this now, it will give me the same effect. See, it's already, as I paint, even with just a flat color, it's giving me the glow, it's giving me the drop shadow. So this is kind of special effect painting. Special effect digital coloring. You can have some fun with it. That's without effects, that's with effects. I think I want to change, let's see, the gradient overlay. I don't want this to be purple. That's kind of nice. All right. You can also, of course, because it's just a color layer, play with the hue and saturation of those layers. Play them up, play them down, change their tones a little bit. Okay. So that's just for the text. I can do that. I might as well do that under here too, but choose kind of other colors. Let's do this deep magenta. Catch up with me. Let's go up. It's a good time to save it when things start to lag behind. And now I'm going to choose that deep red from the leaf here. Paint with that. Just little accents in my lettering here, coloring behind. And then if I feel like I need an inside of that E, which got kind of lost in the live tracing, I never fixed it, there's a few things I can do. I can go to my vector layer and just double click it. Oh, let's unlock it. Double click it. And it will open it up separately. And so you can see, yes, that's in the vector layer. Okay, so why don't I just paint that in my color layer? So I'll just choose black, nice hard brush, very small, and just make a little opening in it. So you have lots of options. Okay, now what about these banners? What about the hamster? All of that. Well, I'm going to put that on a different layer, and I'll call this banner color. Put it underneath the text color. And I'll do this a little differently. I'm going to use the magic wand and select all of these shapes. I guess they're not as contained as I hoped. Let's see. No. All right. So I can just basically do this. Fill in one big shape with a generic flat banner color. Something not so saturated, maybe like that. Paint it in. All right. I can run that behind the other coloring. And now I just modify that. Maybe create another one down here. And it's kind of like a background, but it's just a background for the lettering. And now before I kind of erase it and get it to only fill in what I want, let me try some effects on that. Maybe a slight gradient overlay.